Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas, episode 51. My name is Eddie Rivkin, and I am joined by very special guest host and friend Chris Chapman from Fox Sports Las Vegas. Before we get into stuff, I just want to, on a personal note, take a couple seconds and thank all the people who sent along messages and texts and Facebook messages and everything like that regarding Joe's passing away earlier this month. I want you to know that every one of those comments was read, and it means the world to me. And I'm sure that Joe is looking down on us and really happy that all of you people took a minute of your time to reach out and pass along your condolences. I did share them with Ralph's brother when I saw him in Vegas this week, and it's really it's very much appreciated. So thank you very much. But Chap, there was a lot of naysayers when the playoffs started. 50% of the pundits said the Jets are going to win. After game one, people were saying, oh my God, what the fuck's Mark Stone doing in the lineup? Holy Jesus. That Hellebuck guy, that's a huge advantage for Winnipeg in goal. And, let me harken back to 2018 when Connor Hellebuck said he was the better goaltender and Winnipeg was the better team, and the Golden Knights provided them with what they call a gentleman's sweep. They lost game one, and they won four straight, and the Vegas Golden Knights goaltender soundly outplayed Connor Hellebuck. Fast forward to this year's playoffs, and the pundits and everybody else was like, the Golden Knights don't have any scoring, and they're not dynamic, and they're this and they're that, and the network guys, and everybody was poo-pooing the fact that they were the number one seed, even though they had 50-plus wins in the season. Well, boys and girls, the Golden Knights inflicted a gentleman's sweep on the Winnipeg Jets again. The Vegas Golden Knight goaltender, Laurent Brossoit, soundly outplayed his former teammate Connor Hellebuck, and the Vegas Golden Knights are on to round two of the playoffs. So, in the big picture, Chris, what's your takeaway from round one?
Well, I was honestly, first of all, the series I think was a bit closer than the 4-1 advantage would indicate. A couple of those games were pretty close. I mean, obviously Winnipeg was a better team in game one. And for the first period of game two, I thought they were the better team. But game three was a double overtime game in which, let's be honest, the Golden Knights never should have blown a 3-goal lead. But they were calm, collected in that overtime. They carried that over to the second overtime. Laurent Brossoit, as you mentioned, outplayed Connor Hellebuck. It wasn't as close as that Kings series from the first season where every game where the Golden Knights swept the Kings 4-0, but every game was really, really close. But I think at the end of the day, I it's funny. We joked about it that I got up to go to the bathroom and I missed Rick Bonus's press conference because it was less than 2 minutes. But I think I did watch the video, and I think everything he said was pretty accurate in that the stars of the Golden Knights were better than the stars of the Winnipeg Jets. Once that team lost game four in Winnipeg, it seemed like they kind of quit. Vegas in game four or game five came out and scored really early. Chandler Stevenson, 2 goals in that game. But look, Vegas, I think they proved a lot of people wrong. I mean, I think at least some of the people I was talking to, they felt like analytically that Winnipeg was the better team. They definitely felt that Winnipeg had the better goalie. And look, I mean, I think we heard Mark Stone basically say that they tuned that stuff out. But I do feel like maybe the team felt that they were a little disrespected, that maybe they were overlooked. And I think they proved it, that they were the better team. Obviously, injuries to Winnipeg, that you lose Josh Morrissey in game three, and then you finally get Nikolai Ehlers back for game five, but too little too late there. Mark Scheifele, no contest in game five. But I don't think it makes a difference. I think Josh Morrissey being in there, I still don't think Winnipeg beats the Golden Knights. Look, I mean, I thought it was going to go 6. Vegas would win in Winnipeg to close them out again, to eliminate them at the Canada Life Center. It was Bell something the last time I was there. But look, the Golden Knights were the better team.
Well, I think if you go back to the very beginning, my first impression is probably the biggest of them and probably is the one that will get the most overlooked. And that being that if Laurent Brossoit doesn't stand on his head in the first period of game 2, I mean, they were losing. They lost 1-0, but you and I are sitting next to each other saying this game could be 3-0 or 4-0.
Yeah.
Easy. I mean, he literally. It took the Golden Knights 4 periods to sort of sort through whatever was going on with them, but the fact that they weren't going into period 2, game 2, down 3-0 was an enormous factor in the comeback. Not only in game 2. But the belief that they showed and the resiliency that they showed and the fact that when they got to their game, basically at the puck drop of period 2, game 2, the series was, you could see who the better team was. And I think Laurent Brossoit, for his first playoff series, playing against his old team and his dear friend in the other net, I think that I thought he was fantastic. He did exactly what the Golden Knights want their goaltender to do in high-stress situations. Now, I'm not enormously enamored with his rebound control, but you're getting into just super minutia and nitpicking and everything else like that. And the fact is, I hope that they feel disrespected. I like bulletin board material kind of stuff. I hope that they put the video of all the NHL Network guys picking the Jets. And I don't know how the number 1 seed in a conference can sneak up on somebody. That doesn't seem to, I mean, that doesn't jive with common sense. They're the number 1 seed for a reason. It went down to the last game. The Golden Knights won when they needed to win, and they're the number 1 seed for as long as they're in the playoffs, unless they get Boston on the other end. And we'll get to the Bruins a little bit later on down the line. But they were the significantly better team once they figured out that the weakness was the inability of the smaller Jets defense to move the puck. After 80 games of Coach Cassidy pounding it in their head, if you don't have the pass, dump it in and go forecheck, they found great success when they chipped it into the corners and went and got it because Winnipeg didn't have an answer for it, and they didn't have an answer for it for 4 games. They knew it was coming. They didn't make any adjustments with their forward, bringing them down the walls or doing anything like that to try to help their D. And as much as they may have got out hit in the series, because we all know the TSA guys who count hits up in the press box.
Those numbers were a little more realistic in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, at the end of the day, they were just as physical as the Jets, but they won an enormous amount of board battles, and they retrieved an enormous amount of pucks, and it led directly to goals and extended offensive zone pressure. And I think that's exactly what Bruce Cassidy's looking for from them. And sure, injuries are a factor, but you know what? Guess what? Every team has injuries. See Golden Knights last season if you need a reference for stuff like that.
Yeah, they're not going to feel sorry for anybody.
Yeah, no sympathy whatsoever. But while everything is rosy and the Golden Knights are practicing every other day and working on their golf game, except for Mark Stone, who promised he wasn't playing golf this season, there is a concern. I mean, the PK was at like 40%. And they're looking down the barrel of the Kings or the Oilers, and that's not a good thing. Yes, there were some bad bounces. There are always bad bounces, like there are always injuries. But Chris, if they're killing off 4 out of 10, they're going to be chasing the game an awfully lot, especially if Edmonton gets through.
Yeah, there certainly were some concerns in that regard, and I'm guessing they'll get it shored up, right? Like they've got a couple days now before they're going to play another game, and things you can work on. Look, the reality is they weren't very good at any point when Winnipeg had a man advantage. Let's go back to the 6-on-5 in Game 3, and the Golden Knights multiple times were unable to get the puck out of the defensive zone. You could look at Game 5. Basically, you had 8 minutes plus of an empty net. And the Golden Knights could not get any shots anywhere near that open net. They couldn't get the puck out of the zone again. And this is Winnipeg, a team that, I mean, they do have some star players, but you think for 8 minutes plus of an empty net, you're going to have more than one look at that empty net. I mean, we almost saw Chandler Stevenson get a hat trick in that moment. But that's a concern to me as well, the PK. And I don't know if it was just a blip. Maybe it was something that Winnipeg saw and they were able to exploit, which makes me think if Edmonton sees it and they're able to exploit it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but I'm also of the school of thought that as you progress in the playoffs, the whistles tighten up a little bit, and maybe you're not going to see as many penalties called. I don't necessarily agree that should be the case, but it tends to be the case as we move forward in these playoffs that they get a little bit more selective with what they call. So it almost makes those kills, it makes special teams paramount, because if they do tighten it up, you're certainly going to want to kill penalties, but you're also going to want to score on when you have a power play. So we'll have to see. I mean, I didn't think overall the special teams was horrific. I thought they were much better than expected on the power play after Game 1. But yeah, I mean, certainly there is cause for concern if you look at the way that the Jets were able to exploit them when they had a man advantage. Edmonton is feasting if that's the case. If they play Vegas, they see that they're licking their chops.
Let me ask you this. How nervous were you in Game 5 when the 4-2 goal went in with 3 minutes to go in the game? Before it got pulled off the board.
I'll be honest. I was a little on edge because it would have been 4-2 with about 2 minutes to go. Certainly, there's nothing that says you're not going to score 2 more goals with that advantage. You know, all it would have taken was a goofy bounce in the next 45 seconds or so, and all of a sudden it's 4-3. And I mean, I hate to bring up
that moment memories in San Jose,
but we that's something that anyone who was around this organization, whether as a fan, as a player, as a member of the media, I was in San Jose. I saw it firsthand, and I still to this day think the Golden Knights won that game. I just can't fathom in my mind. And then you go, it's funny because it was San Jose last year as the Golden Knights were fighting for that last playoff spot last week of the season. They gave up 2 goals to San Jose in the final minute. And they ended up losing that game in overtime. And that was kind of like, I think for me, that was the moment. I know they still had a few games left, but I think that was the last regular season game of the year at home. And I walked out of that building saying, these guys are not making the playoffs. So yeah, my nerve factor went up a bit because stranger things have happened. And, you know, Winnipeg had scored. That would have been their third 6-on-5 goal in the series. So certainly you get a little nervous, but there was a hand pass. It came back. Bruce Cassidy and the video team did an outstanding job challenging that. But if there is no hand pass, all of a sudden those butts clenching a little bit tighter. You know, the people are grabbing the armrests down at T-Mobile Arena a little bit tighter because you're on edge then for the next 2 minutes, because it certainly was no foregone conclusion that if it's 4-2 with 2 minutes to go that you're winning that game.
Well, it was definitely getting to be a pucker moment. And, you know, the unsung hero of this, the guy that I don't think any of us could pick out in a lineup, is Dave Rogowski. I don't quote me on this because everybody who watches this knows I'm not a stat guy, but I think he's undefeated in the last couple of years in challenges. I think the guy don't miss.
Yeah, these guys are, and you can go back to the previous guy, Tommy. I think think it's Tommy Cruz was his name, and he was always really good too. Like they've been really lucky having um, video
Yeah.
guys who pick up everything, and when they challenge an offsides, you almost know that the goal's coming off the board.
Yeah, even if we've got to wait 5 or 6 minutes for them to find it and show it to us on the jumbotron, it's
Yeah,
like if the beeper goes off in somebody's ear on the bench. I mean, Bruce Cassidy said after the game that Stoney and Stevie both said it was a hand pass right there,
yeah.
when it happened.
Well, you could
So,
see on the face-off, Stevenson raised his arm right away, and
yep,
he turned to the ref. He
yep,
knew instantaneously, but they missed the stoppage, and look, shit happens, and there's
yeah,
never. I never want to leave my fate to
oh,
someone making a decision based on a video. We saw in the Edmonton LA game with the high stick, maybe playing a puck and the Kings score a game winning goal in overtime, how much controversy there was about that. I'm just not someone who wants my fate in the hands of someone else. And there's a school of thought that says, hey, look, if this happens 30 seconds before they score the goal, shame on you for not getting the puck out of play, not
right.
getting control of the puck and starting the clock over. So while I don't believe that, look, if it's a hand pass or if it's an offside or if it's a high stick and it's missed, I don't care if it happens a minute and 30 seconds previous to the goal going in. It should be called, and certainly the Knights are within their right. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that. But yeah, I mean, the reality is, if not for that hand pass, people sweat a little bit more down the stretch in Game 4.
Let's talk about the salary cap criminal, the felon, the thief, the captain, number 61, Mark Stone, and
They let him out on parole.
they magically let him out on parole for game one of the playoffs, and I mean the man's had 2 back surgeries in 9 months. Clearly, in game one, his eyes were seeing something, but his hands
Yeah.
and feet weren't quite in sync. When you can see him, if you're an intelligent hockey fan watching the game, you can see Mark Stone thinking the game. It's if you just spend a minute and watch, but there was just something disconnected. And listen, he wasn't up to speed. He hadn't played in 3.5 months, and then one game, one practice, game 2, there's the captain. All
Yeah.
$8.5 million
Made his
of
presence known.
yeah. I mean, and it really is an unbelievable story. Forget the money. We're talking about a human being who's had back surgery twice
Twice.
in less than in less than 12 months, and he's come back to play in the NHL. And clearly, Winnipeg was targeting him.
Oh, God, was
Clearly,
that.
there was chops, and there were cross checks, and there were this and that and the other thing. And you know what? We got to talk to Mark Stone pretty consistently throughout the series. I feel fine. I needed to be with the boys. I want to be here, right? And it's not an enormous leap, I don't think, to say that he was one of the 2 or 3 difference makers in the series. That Winnipeg had no answer when the Golden Knights got to rolling 4 lines, and you've got Howden with 2, and you get Amadio, and you get 9 or 10 guys who score over the course of 5 games. Unhealthy Mark Stone showed you what the lineup was going to be. Healthy Mark Stone showed you what the lineup was going to do. And those 2 things are very different. And it's just an unbelievable, not a redemption story, but there's just his tenacity and his stick-to-itiveness, because he was away from the team a lot.
Yeah.
And it's lonely rehabbing because you're not with the boys and you're not going to team dinners on the road and doing things like that. And he was incredible. I mean, yes, expressive Mark Stone when he scores and all that stuff is wonderful. But what he does for the other 19 guys, dressed, is you can't put a numerical figure on the value of having the captain in the lineup, and then having the captain healthy. So what tell me what your thoughts on Mark Stone
Well,
are.
the one thing I've said about Mark Stone for a long time is I don't think he's the best player on the team, but I think he's the most important player on the team. What he provides is invaluable, and it's something that, as you mentioned, you can't put a monetary value on his presence in the lineup. Sure, he's an all-star player and he's a potential Selke Award winner every single year when he's able to play. I mean, he's that good. But I think a lot of us would agree that Jack Eichel, talent-wise, is probably the best player on the team. Shea Theodore, talent-wise, Alex Pietrangelo, talent-wise. But it's what Mark Stone brings to that lineup, and it's the chemistry that him and Chandler Stevenson have. It's the ability for Bruce Cassidy to throw Brett Howden, who was, there was a statistic about Howden, about how many games that this team won when he was in the lineup, as opposed to how many they didn't win when he wasn't in the lineup. So the ability to be able to throw Brett Howden in with Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone, right? Like, you can't just throw guys together. They have to fit and they have to have chemistry. But Mark Stone's presence just creates something that I don't think a lot of people who aren't around the team can really understand. It's a bit like Star Wars. He's got the Force, right? Like, Mark Stone is a Jedi. He's got that special ability to not only raise his game, but raise the game of everybody that he plays with, raise the game of everyone who skates, not just his line. Those guys on that roster, when he's out there, they don't want to let him down. I think everybody raises their game when he's there. It's an incredible thing to witness. And when he comes back, and you can see the way that a guy like Nick Hague, who plays defense, but when someone gets a little too close to Mark Stone, Nick Hague's like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm throwing my weight around here.
The mean Nick Hague, the guy we
Yes,
the guy
yes.
we
And
the guy we
he's
want to
not a
see all the
guy.
time.
Yeah. Like, I like mean Nick Hague because he's a
Yes.
big guy, but with him, like, he only brings it out when it needs to be brought out, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of mean Nick Hague. Guys like that, they love Mark Stone. I mean, I think the media likes Mark Stone because he's so honest with us all the time. And I feel like when he scores a goal and you see him celebrate, the whole arena wants to jump down on the ice and give him a hug and high five and celebrate with him. There's not a lot of players in the league today that have that type of influence on a game, on a crowd, on their team. Like, Mark Stone is a special, special player. And I think it goes beyond him just being a talented player. It goes deeper than that. It's what he brings that you can't create. Like, some guys have it, some guys don't. Mark Stone has it with some chili and some cheese and all the other good stuff on top of it. Like, it's incredible to watch. I love watching him play because I like seeing his raw emotion. I'm a big raw emotion guy. The game is fun. The game is emotional, but not everybody shows that. Mark Stone has fun and he's emotional and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And I think his teammates rally around that, Eddie.
Mark Stone is the great intangible. Like, when they put up the legal pad and they compare the Jets or anybody else in the Golden Knights, and they go offense, defense, penalty kill, power play, goaltending, and the last box is always intangibles, right?
Yeah.
It's the everything else, all encompassing, the difference maker factor. And I could say comfortably that there's no bigger intangible on any team in the NHL than what Mark Stone brings to the Golden Knights, not on paper, not necessarily. I mean, he does his work to get on the score sheet, but the everything else it factor that you talked about, he brings that, and he brings something to them an inherent confidence, an absolute belief that they can get through it. I mean, like you said, listen, the team would go through a wall for him. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. He is the great intangible, right? He's the guy who, if every single thing was identical statistically, he's the guy that swings the favor in the Golden Knights because of what he brings to the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about another Golden Knight, much maligned for his sort of previous sort of aloof nature when he came over, but I know you and I have a bit of a disagreement, but let's talk about Jack Eichel. His first game, he looked a little bit overwhelmed. And, I mean, for a guy who is as good a skater as he is, he didn't at all look comfortable. They hung a -3 on him. He wasn't, I don't know if it's zoned in is maybe the right term, but he didn't seem like he was prepared for what playoff hockey. And to remember, to his defense, he never played in a playoff game until game 1 of this series.
Nearly 500 games in the league.
Right. So he had no reference material whatsoever to work with, and he struggled in game 1. And he said that he struggled in game 1. But Jack Eichel showed up in games 2, 3, 4, and 5. Jack Eichel started shooting the puck more, which is what we've been screaming for since he got. And I think that he is a top 5 or 6 player in the NHL. His hockey brain, his calmness with the puck. Now, does he hold the puck sometimes a little longer than I would prefer? Yes. But you can see that he's like a shark circling, looking for somebody to move to make a pass. He's not just dogging the puck around the ice.
He enjoys setting other guys up. Like, you can see that he enjoys passing the puck and getting assists. And, that's an important part of the game. But I like the analogy of a shark circling around because it's a bit what he looks like, looking for that morsel or looking for that penguin or whatever it is, that seal that the shark is about to sink his teeth into. But, yeah, I mean, I think you and I, we certainly don't always see the same thing with Jack Eichel. Like, for me, I questioned a bit of Jack Eichel after game 1, but I saw something in him after that game. Like, he took it personal. He took losing game 1 personal. And I feel like it dogged on him to lose that game. And it was almost like, hey, you know what? I've waited 500 games to get into the playoffs.
7 years, 500 games.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not about to go out now. I'm not about to just lose after one series. I saw a different side of Jack Eichel in that series, and I'm hoping that's the Jack Eichel that we see the remainder of the playoffs. Look, I'll be the first guy to admit that I'm wrong. I have zero issue. So I hope I'm wrong, because I questioned, if he had it in him to elevate his game for the playoffs. And clearly the last 4 games I was wrong. I want to see it carry over. I want to see him play like he did in those last 4 games. Look, I mean, you hang a -3 on someone and you hang your head at the end of the night, and then you go home and you go to bed and you wake up and you get to start all over. That's the great thing about sports. You get a redo. And in this case, you had 2 other redos if things went the same way they did in game 1. I don't think the Golden Knights are in the department of doing redos. And they showed that. And Jack Eichel showed that. And I mean, I love his game. I think sometimes with him, I think it's a little mental, because like as you and I talked about, years being the scapegoat in Buffalo, a shit team for his entire existence there, that wears on you. Now I think he is more comfortable, and I think he knows that he doesn't have to do it all on his own, right? Like, yeah, he had a couple of guys in Buffalo who were good players. Ryan O'Reilly but no one to the level of what he's got here, or the depth as far as what he's got here. So I think the best of Jack Eichel in these playoffs is still yet to come. I don't
Oh,
think we've seen the best Jack
absolutely.
Eichel yet.
I think, and I've always thought, and we actually, we talked about it at lunch earlier this afternoon. Jack Eichel could have had Connor McDavid's season this year in Buffalo, and they still would have shit on him because they wouldn't have made the playoffs. Just like McDavid didn't make the playoffs for a number of years. The big difference is he's now showing concern where he didn't look like he was concerned, but I always knew that he was engaged. I always knew that he was a competitor. That sort of laissez-faire, indifferent sort of, maybe he shrugs when something doesn't go. That's all horseshit. He has a lot of pride. He was the number 2 pick in the draft, ladies and gentlemen, behind one Connor McDavid. Okay? Neither one of them have won shit yet.
Yeah.
The only difference is McDavid has had a lot more bites at the apple, and this is Jack Eichel's first bite at the apple. And I think he absolutely 100% took his performance in Game 1 personally. And the difference is that if this was Game 1 in Buffalo, he would have to go home and talk to his dog for advice. Whereas after Game 1 and not being satisfied, he could go to Stanley Cup winner Alex Pietrangelo, or two-time Stanley Cup winner Alec Martinez, or the other guys in the room that have rings, and bounce what he was feeling, because he was probably pretty pissed.
Yeah,
because he came out and he showed why he was the number 2 pick in the draft. In my opinion, he skated circles around people. There's nobody on that team that pushes the defense back when they're bringing the puck into the zone. There's nobody on that team that they fear more than him. There ain't no D standing up at the line trying to make a play when Jack Eichel's coming up the ice with a full head of steam. They're backing him in, which gives the Golden Knights the zone advantage that they need to make the plays to score the goals. And the fact that he's been a little bit more emotive than he has recently, he's absolutely fully engaged now. And, the fact that he's playing on the PK, he's at his comfortable spot on the half wall, and he scored the 2 power play goals in the same office as Ovechkin and Zibanejad and a couple other guys. Right? And a lot of that has improved because of Mark Stone's
presence,
quietness, and control, where he doesn't, nothing really flusters him. So I'm really happy for Jack. I think that it's ridiculous to say that this is his coming out party, but this is the time where if the VGK go on a deep run, that the fan base is going to see the number 2 overall pick in the draft. And I think he had 5 or 6 points in 5 games. I don't know quite exactly. He was behind 2 guys that had 8, but he is a difference maker, and I fully expect for him to continue on that path, because he's got the support of the room now, right? He doesn't have to be the guy. He just needs to go out there and be Jack Eichel.
Just play your game.
If you do Jack Eichel things, good things are going to happen for the Vegas Golden Knights. So let's talk about I guess we should talk about the Kings and the Edmonton Oilers. The Golden Knights' next potential opponent are in Game 6. Starts in a couple hours, I think.
About 3 hours.
And personally, I don't really care who wins. I just want tonight's game to go to quadruple overtime and Game 7 to go to quintuple overtime, and for them to beat the living piss out of each other for the next 9 periods over 2 games. I think the Kings missed a golden opportunity when they lost that game in overtime to go, and they could have gone up 3-1. That could have really turned the screws hard down on Edmonton. Do you want to make a pick for this series?
I think Edmonton is going to win. I picked them to win, but Eddie, the funny thing is, I couldn't agree more. They were up 3-0 in what was it, Game 4
And
on
4
home
1.
ice, on
Yeah.
home ice, and they let Edmonton take that game from them. They led again 4-3 late in the third period. And I think it was Evander Kane scored to tie the game. And then they go to overtime. And look, the reality is Edmonton is too good to give a second life to. They're, they're I'm trying to think of an analogy where you let them off the hook, right? Remember Dennis Green years ago when he was the coach of the Arizona Cardinals and they got their ass kicked on Monday night by the Bears, but they were up in the game and they probably should have won. And he's up there slamming on the desk and the dais saying, they are who we thought we were. We let them off the hook. Well, that's what the LA Kings did to the Edmonton Oilers in that Game 4. You're up 3-0 and you let them off the hook. You threw them a life raft and you let them climb on that life raft, and then they left you behind in the ocean. And then they come out in Game 5 and they just kick your ass. Game 6 is in Los Angeles. I think the extra days of rest is probably good for the Kings. They're able to get their mind straight, right? Like if you play that Game 6 2 nights later, maybe mentally you're not there. But the Kings have guys
Edmonton might steamroll them if they go 2 days after.
Yeah, exactly. But I think LA's got some leaders, guys like Kopitar, guys like Drew Doughty who've won the cup, guys like Iafallo who seemed like nothing seems to bother him. Adrian Kempe seems like he's a happy-go-lucky kind of player where he doesn't allow things to get in his mind. I think mentally the break was good for the Kings because, as you said, I think if they play Game 6 right away, they probably do get smashed. But having the break, being home for a couple days, being around your family, you relax a little bit, and then you start to focus on Game 6. Game 5 is a distant memory. Game 4 is a distant memory. The question I have and I wonder about is what happens if they get up again by 2 goals? Does the fragileness creep in? Like, oh, shit, here we are again? Or do they close it out? And I think that's going to be the key because I think Edmonton and LA, I don't see a whole lot of difference between the two of them other than, I mean, it's a big difference, but McDavid and Draisaitl. But I think they've done a really good job of kind of keeping McDavid somewhat as quiet as you could have hoped in the series. Sure, he's got a couple of assists, but he hasn't broken out and been the star player. I feel like Draisaitl has kind of been their best player in the series. So, if you're LA, obviously you're just focusing on getting up in the game and closing it out and, living the fight another day. But we're a few hours away and like, I'm with you. Beat the hell out of each other. Give me another seven games of this and let them just pound each other. And, they make a difference. Golden Knights are home drinking martinis and resting. LA and Edmonton are out there beating each other up. So I think obviously if you're a Vegas fan, you want this to go 7 games. And I think you probably don't really care who wins because neither one of them are going to be an easy matchup.
So you've got the Oil. You got the Oil tonight or Monday night at home?
Yeah, I picked them to win the cup, so I think I can't go against that now.
Okay, but do they win? Do they send the Kings packing tonight, or does it go to Game 7?
I think they win it tonight. I think they win tonight.
I agree. I think that I don't necessarily think they're the better team, but I think their star, like you said, Draisaitl has been the better player in this series, and the Los Angeles Kings neutral zone black hole in space defense has been effective against McDavid. But Draisaitl has been absolutely fantastic. They said that they had that player survey and they said he was the best passer in the NHL, and it's like, I don't know. But then I watched him a little bit. He's pretty fucking good. He's a pretty good hockey player. That Draisaitl guy.
I think he's the second best player in the league.
I'll go with you. I think that if Edmonton scores first, it could be similar to Game 5 with the Knights. I think that all the air can come out of the balloon pretty fast.
Yeah, and the
And
Kings will just pack it in.
Yeah, it could be something like that. But if the Kings score first, then we could get that Donnybrook that we're both hoping for.
Yeah. Give me a 5 overtime game tonight. Let them put it on repeat and do it again on Monday.
Yes. Let's talk about the greatest regular season team in the history of the National Hockey League, the Boston Bruins. They're going through a moment of distress, and they haven't gone through any. They haven't gone through any distress at all this year. So, the Florida Panthers show a little bit of testicular fortitude. They blow up a lead. They lose the lead. They come back. They win the game. And lo and behold, Boston is in a Game 7 in their own barn against the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, who did win the President's Cup last year.
Mm-hmm.
So how puckered are the Bruin sphincters, and is all the pressure on them? Because, Florida's playing with house money, right?
Yeah, there's no pressure at all on Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers. They should have been dead. Look, Matthew Tkachuk has been the best player in the series as far for my money. He showed up big time last night. They made a goalie change, right? They went from Alex Lyon to Sergei Bobrovsky. It must be nice when you can go from one guy to a guy who's won 2 Vezina trophies and say, all right, it's your net now. But Florida last night, that game was crazy. 7-5 was the final. Again, we had a goal called back for hand pass, and I know I saw some Bruin fans upset about it. Look, by rule, it was a hand pass, and I don't particularly take any issue with that. Just get it right. But I think Boston, they're feeling the pressure. When they lost Game 2 at home, and then they lost Game 5 at home, it was the first time all season that they had lost 2 home games in a row. They're facing adversity. I feel like their leadership will step up. Marchand and Patrice Bergeron, who I think everybody loves Patrice Bergeron, not only because he's a great player, but he's just a tremendous human being, a guy you root for. But I'm rooting for the Florida Panthers. I want to see the Bruins lose. It has nothing
I'm
to
all
do
over it
with Boston or anything like that. I just think it's funny to think that this team could set all these records and blow a 3-1 series lead and lose in the first round. I think I saw last night that Florida would, if they win this series, they would be the 8th team to beat the President's Trophy winner in the first round. The last time it happened, I believe it was Tampa Bay, who lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They got swept by Sergei Bobrovsky, who was the goaltender for the Columbus Blue Jackets at the time before he left for Florida. But there's a lot of similarities between this Tampa team or this Boston team and that Tampa team. Blew through the regular season, set all sorts of wins and points records, and then they got smoked. Obviously, the Bruins, I think it would probably be worse because you're up 3-1 in the series. You're going home to Boston up 3-1. Teams that go up 3-1 win at a 90% clip in the NHL. This isn't the NBA where, okay, maybe you can get back home and win a couple games, but the NHL, you go up 3-1, it's almost a lock that you're winning. And I don't know what the percentage is if you're up 3-1 and you go home for Game 5, but I would imagine it's even higher than 90%. So for the Bruins to lose, if they lose this series, I think it would be one of the most devastating things in NHL history because of the fact that they set every single record. They were up 3-1.
Catastrophic.
And look, they were up last night in the third period.
Yep.
They had that game. And they gave up the late goal, then they gave up another goal, and then they gave up the empty net goal. They were up, and Florida scored 3 straight goals in that game. And when Boston went up 5-4, I said, this game's over. And
27 seconds later, it wasn't. Yeah.
And then like I said, Matthew Tkachuk's been the best player in the series for my money. I feel like he's a superstar, and as a guy who watches the Pacific Division more than any other division in hockey, I'm glad he's gone. Like I'm glad he's out of the Pacific Division because not only is he an excellent player, he's a pain in the ass. And he's not afraid to mix it up and get in the pile and stir shit up. I like him because he's a bit of an old school player, but man, he's damn good when he's locked in.
Twice as many points as his replacement in Calgary, Jonathan
Yeah.
Huberdeau.
Not
That's really all you have to say.
yeah.
But are you going to go out on a limb and show a set of brass ones? Are you going to pick? Are you going to pick Florida?
Yeah, I am. They got nothing to lose. There's no pressure on them at all. They
Listen,
can go out and
they should be out. They should be at. Boston probably doesn't have beaches though, and the weather
They
sucks.
can go to
But
Cape
they should.
Cod, go hang out with Bruce.
They should probably be. They should be having Bloody Marys and watching hockey. And Paul Maurice said, "Boys, just go play hockey."
Yeah.
There should be no motivation. No, there's no need for a speech. There's no nothing. Boys, just go do you.
Florida has some damn good players. I mean, Barkov is obviously an incredible player. Aaron Ekblad is an elite defenseman. You know, you've got some really good players in Florida, guys who, like you said, they won the President's Trophy last year, so it's not like they're a shit team with a bunch of scrubs, right? They're not the San Jose Sharks from when they were the 8th seed, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but Archer's Urbe shut down this elite Detroit Red Wings team. However, what was it, 30 years ago? I mean, they're not a shit team. They've got some elite talent and some skill. And I mean, I don't think these guys give a shit. They're going to go out and they're going to play. And if they get beat, they get beat. But I think you're going to see maybe the best game the Florida Panthers have played all season tomorrow night.
I want the Florida Panthers to win, but I'm going to pick Boston.
Oh.
And wait, hold on.
All right.
The reason that I'm going to pick Boston is because on Spanish TV they're called novellas, like soap operas.
Okay, yeah.
Telling right? Soap operas.
Yeah, I watch them with the sound down.
Yeah, because they're I don't want to say something incredibly sexist about how incredibly hot the women on those shows are. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to say Boston because I'm holding out that morsel of hope that the storyline in the Stanley Cup Finals is Bruce Cassidy against the Bruins.
I think that's fair.
That, I make no bones about it. I want Florida to win that game. As much as I don't care for Minnesota or for Dallas, I want the Bruce Cassidy celebration tour to beat Pete DeBoer in the Western Conference Finals and to beat the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup Final. That's my dream. That's the Hallmark, the Lifetime movie. That's the story of storylines. Is if it goes that way.
It would be incredible if he beats Pete and then beats the Boston Bruins. Like, you couldn't get more storybook.
Right. So go Florida, but it's okay if Boston wins if it's a Vegas-Boston final. Of interest to our friends in the Western Conference, the real Avalanche team showed up last night.
Yes, they did.
Gave a smack into the Kraken. See, I made a little funny there, a smack into the Kraken. And but they showed up. The real Avalanche team rather showed up.
Yeah.
Did the Kraken have a prayer to win Game 7 in Colorado?
No. They had their chance last night, and they get that first goal, and it was almost like the switch went on with Nathan McKinnon and you had Bo Byram and just Devon Taves show up. And look, that Avalanche team is really damn good. There's a reason why they won the Stanley Cup last year. There's that switch that went off, and they were down 1-0, and they had a goal called back. I
Right.
think they would have gone up 1-0. The goal was called back, and then the Avalanche or the Kraken score, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, this is interesting now. Nope, wasn't interesting.
Nope.
Colorado turned it on, and they blew right by the Kraken like a hot knife through butter. And I think they just destroy Seattle tomorrow, and we get Dallas and Colorado in the next
Which
round, which
is
certainly
which is
is interesting.
lovely. Yes,
Yeah,
it's
because those two
I
teams
listen.
will beat the shit out of each other.
I agree 100%. I think that I mean it's a lovely story, the Kraken in year 2, and
Reality
they
set in last night, though.
yeah, it's now put your big boy pants on, and you're going to find out what playoff hockey is really about.
Yeah,
And they got boat raced pretty bad last night, and I think that they still have a little bit of that wonderment about them where they think that they can compete. But I think that Daddy's going to give them another pretty solid spanking tomorrow.
yeah,
I see that as like 4-1,
yeah.
5-1.
It's like your real welcome to the Thunderdome moment.
Yeah, it's like, hey, nice season. What a great story, boys. But it's time for you to leave it to the grown-ups
Yeah,
because it's grown-up time in the NHL.
it's time for big boy hockey.
And let's finish up since we started with the biggest choke of the year, if it were to happen, that being the Boston Bruins. What about the biggest choke in the last 2 decades, Chris Chapman? 2 decades. There are no players in the NHL now on any active roster that played a game in the NHL when the Toronto Maple Leafs won a first-round series. Now that Zdeno Chara is running the Boston Marathon or whatever the hell he's doing. So
Throwing out first pitches at Fenway.
yeah. So Toronto goes up 3-1, and Jackie, what's her name, the one on NHL? Not Jackie Rosen. She's our senator. Jackie.
Oh, Jackie
Redmond.
Yeah, Jackie Redmond. Jeez, how do I forget that?
Jackie. Oh, this is the Leafs' year. Oh, I'm okay. I know I'm not going to jinx them. And, it's going to, well, guess what, sister? Your panties are a little bit bunchier right now because you didn't get it done in Game 5. And there's that guy in net in Tampa, that Vasilevsky fellow. He's now 5-1 with a .950 save percentage in his last 5 elimination games. Pucker, boys.
Yeah.
Are the Leafs going to get it done?
I feel like they will, but Eddie,
didn't sound very positive about that.
I don't know how I could put any faith in these guys. Like, I mean, I feel like everybody outside of Toronto is rooting for them to fuck this up again.
Oh, they're as hated as the Patriots.
And the funny thing is, people hate the Patriots because they win. People hate the Maple Leafs because they choke. I mean, they haven't won a series in 19 years, 11 straight elimination games they've lost. Like, you would think by default they would have won one. By accident. You look at Vasilevsky in closeout games, and he's about as perfect as it gets. Like, the guy I know he lost the Cup final last year, but, I mean, the guy, at some point they were going to lose a game. That was an elimination game. But Eddie, I just cannot put my faith in the Toronto Maple Leafs. I want them to win because I want it to be over. But there's just something about the comedy and the if they do this, first of all, if they blow this lead and they lose this series, I would not want to be anywhere near Scotiabank Arena when Game 7 goes down and that whistle blows and you're looking at the scoreboard and you see that your Maple Leafs lost again. I cannot imagine. You know what? I bet there's people in Toronto who are rooting for them to lose just for shits and giggles, just because they want to see them lose.
Well, you said the key word, and that's the comedy of it. I mean, I'm an original 6 guy. I'm from Detroit. Toronto. they could lose until my great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren, and I don't have any children, and I would be absolutely perfectly okay with it, and I would enjoy the folly and the theater of arguably the most entitled fan base in the NHL having their hearts taken out of their chest, dropped in an alley somewhere in downtown Toronto near Runway 69, my favorite strip club ever in Toronto. Thank you very much. And then stomped on. It doesn't matter what the GM does, Kyle Dubas. I mean, I think they made really good moves. I think bringing in O'Reilly, that brings you that's pretty solid move by him, and bringing in the D guy, but they don't have the goal.
Made the right moves.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's Toronto.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. And
I'm wearing my New York Jets shirt, right? The New York Jets are a lot like the Toronto Maple Leafs. They went out and they got Aaron Rodgers, and there's this media circus now around the New York Jets and that they're going to win the Super Bowl and they're favored to be really, really good this year. And look, I know how this story ends. I could write it 100 different ways. It's all going to end up in the same place, and that's disappointment for me as a New York Jets fan.
Okay. Game 6 is, I think it's tonight.
I think it is.
I think it's tonight.
It might have actually already started.
Oh yeah, it probably did. So obviously, if you're watching this, you know that we're not. So we can't. We're gonna make predictions, and they're gonna be in the blind because we have no idea what's really going.
They're about 4 minutes into the game, no score. So
okay,
they are underway in that one.
So, is this the year the Leafs get it done, or is this the year that we can continue to have the heartiest of har laughs as their futility goes into its 21st year?
I think they get it done. I think they get the monkey off their back. I think they're gonna. You know what? I'm just gonna put it out there. They're gonna win this series, and I think they will win their next series. I think once they win one, I think there's no pressure on them, and I think they'll make a run. Right? It hasn't been since who was it? Felix Potvin was their goalie the last time that they were any good. I mean, they made any noise in the playoffs. I mean, that was in the mid '90s, wasn't it? So, I think they get it done. I really do. And
tonight in Tampa or Monday in Toronto?
I think tonight. And you know what?
Tampa.
I won't eat crow because I'm not a Leafs fan. I don't really give a shit if they win or lose, but I'm not putting anything on it. I certainly wouldn't bet it, but my gut tells me that they're going to get it done.
I want so badly for Tampa to win. So incredibly badly I want Tampa to win. But I think that 3 years of playing over 100 games a year and going all the way down to the end, I just think that this is the time. What do they say? Father Time's undefeated.
Yeah.
Right.
Father Time and Mother Nature.
Yeah. I feel like this is the opportunity that Toronto has. The Vasilevsky has not really been himself up until the last game, and they're just a little bit depleted, and they've just played such an gigantic, enormous amount of fucking hockey over the last 3 years.
Yeah, it catches up with you.
Yeah, I mean, and not low event, low pressure hocky.
No, I think that, you still feel the effects of playing in the bubble.
Yeah,
I think that has, you look at that and you're like, that was a unique situation, but it was something mentally and I think physically that I think these guys will take with them for the rest of their careers.
So I am begrudgingly going to say that Toronto gets it done this year. I don't think they're going to win tonight. I think they're going to win at home in Game 7.
Oh, if they lose tonight, they're not winning the series. I think they lose Game 7 at home.
I want them to lose. I make no. I can't be any. I can't. I mean, listen, we're doing a podcast, so we don't have to sugarcoat our opinions, and we
Yeah.
can curse if we want to. I want them to fucking lose. I really do, because just the amount of belly laughing, rolling back in your chair, laughing, it's priceless to me. But I feel like this is the year that they're going to get through, and it's just because I think that this is the year that Tampa sort of hits the wall.
Yeah, and everything comes full circle.
Yeah, this is I don't remember
The
whose
days of
album was
seeing
the
the
big
Mike
payback.
Bossy Islanders winning 4 straight, I think those are long gone.
Yeah, no, there's too much talent, and I don't know if they'll go on a run if they get the monkey off of their back, but. And they don't deserve anything that, in my opinion, it's, but I think I do. I hate them. I hate them like I hate the Blackhawks and the Habs, and I don't hate the Rangers that much because they were Joe's favorite team.
Yeah, well,
but I hate
they're up against it this year too, because I mean, funny thing is, I wish Joe was here because the shit talking between him and I would be epic. I mean, I grew up a Devils fan, so. To watch them come back in this series and on the brink of eliminating the Rangers, I mean, the shit talking would be epic. That's for damn sure.
Okay, so we're not gonna talk about that because New Jersey's gonna get it done, and I'm sorry, Joe, but after you choke down 3 in a row like that, and you've scored 2 goals in the last 3 games,
I think that game started already too.
I'm sorry, but your Rangers are going to implode, and then they'll probably make Gerard Gallant a scapegoat, and because of Jimmy Dolan, the owner, and on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So we've got the Avalanche. We agree on the Leafs. We agree on the Panthers, but I want the Bruins to win for soap opera sake. Listen, could you imagine if we got to go to the finals in Boston and it was the Knights against Bruce Cassidy?
Pretty damn awesome.
I mean, that'd be a story we could tell our kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really would be a fantastic story, especially if he goes through Pete DeBoer.
In D.C. for those games, and it was, the storybook ending wasn't there, but it was still a storybook. And
sure,
to be around that was quite literally the greatest experience of my career. And, I mean, to be able to have the opportunity to do it again with this type of story would probably be maybe not as cool, but certainly as interesting.
So that'll wrap it up. Chapman and I got to go watch hockey because it's Saturday night and we don't have anything better to do. So we're gonna put the picture in the picture and watch all the games, and then I think the plan for Hockey Nights in Vegas going through as far as the Golden Knights go is we'll bring on some special guest hosts, and we'll continue to remember our friend Joe because he'll never be out of our minds and our memories. But we'll continue to talk shit, and we'll make predictions, and we'll laugh at people who deserve to be laughed at because there's certainly plenty of them. Unfortunately, we can't share the story about our friend in the press box who we would love to have a laugh with. But that's going to wrap up episode 51 of Hockey Nights in Vegas. Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you doing it. I'm glad you liked lunch at Juan's Flaming Fajitas with your lovely wife today.
Phenomenal. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And we'll be back with you, depending on when the Golden Knights start, maybe a preview of round 2 since we'll have all the matchups, or if not, shortly thereafter. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. Thanks, as always, to Anthony Curtis and the Las Vegas Advisor at www.lasvegasadvisor.com. If it happens in Las Vegas, it happens at Anthony Curtis's Las Vegas Advisor. I do love the color of their banner because, goddamn, it matches my shirt just about perfectly, wouldn't you say, Chap? Look at that.
I like it. You know what? I have a purple suit jacket. I have purple shoes, so I'm a big fan of purple.
Pimping ain't easy.
Look, if fucking Prince could rock purple,
that's it.
He's the greatest, one of the greatest musicians ever. If he says he's down with the purple, I'm down with the purple. I ain't gonna argue with him.
That's it. We're down with the purple, and we're out of episode 51. Chap, thanks. I'll see you Tuesday or Wednesday night at the Fortress for Game 1.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right, thanks.